What up guys, Munk here, and today we had a really big announcement from Apple, a lot of new products. They did this at their new Steve Jobs Theater, so in remembrance of Steve Jobs, they had a ton of great stuff that they announced. So let's go through all the cool products that were announced today at Apple. So Apple usually announces the products in 3 different segments throughout the year. At the beginning of this year, we had some announcements with the MacBook Pro, the iMac Pro, most of the computer stuff. In the summer, they have their WWDC Developers Conference that usually contains mostly software updates, so the new iOS, new macOS, and new Watch and tvOS. October is the time for all the portable stuff, the iPhone, the Watch, and in this case, a new Apple TV. So they did updates on most of the products today, and I gotta say, there's a ton of really cool stuff that they announced. Let's start with the Apple Watch. They kind of go through some basic stuff saying that the Apple Watch has now surpassed Rolex as being the best-selling watch, and that their watch is becoming the new sort of standard for smartwatches. They kind of gave an update that we've seen with their new Watch OS 4, which is more fitness tracking capabilities as well as better heart rate sensing. And we finally get to see the Apple Watch Series 3. This one is actually quite a big step over the previous watches, and definitely a much bigger step that the 2 had over the 1. So this one's a big release because it now has cellular service synced in with the watch. This was one of the major complaints of the Apple Watch over the few years is it wasn't really a device on its own. It was something that was just an accessory to your phone. It worked with your phone. If you didn't have your phone, it was basically pretty useless. So they talked about how they basically converted their screen to also be an antenna. So the whole front face is an antenna and will pick up a signal. They've also introduced an electronic SIM, which isn't like a micro SIM card. You don't need a SIM card for this. It's essentially built into the watch. So this is gonna be the next big push for smartwatches, and it's something that I think a lot of people were hesitant about getting a smartwatch in the first place, and this will actually be the thing that will tip them over to actually getting it. So they're getting rid of the Series 2 in place for the Series 3, and you can get the Series 3 without cellular for $329 or with cellular for $399. Next is something I was kind of waiting for a while, which is the new Apple TV. I've had my Apple TV for a while now, and despite a few of the quirks, I actually really love it. I think it's a great addition to the living room, and it works very well, especially if you're running through the Apple ecosystem. As predicted by a lot of news sites, Apple just released their Apple TV 4K. And again, this isn't really breaking any new ground. There's been a couple of other streaming players out there that did 4K, like Google has one, as well as the Roku. Along with the 4K and HDR, Apple has packed this new TV device with the A10X processor. They also started integrating live sports into their TV app as well as international channels. Not a ton of new stuff on Apple TV, but this honestly really excites me. The big thing that the Apple TV needed was just slightly better hardware and support for 4K and HDR. With those things, I think that the Apple TV is almost the perfect living room device and is going to be one of my next purchases. The Apple TV 4K is going to start at $179 for a 32 gig. Apple just announced the new iPhone 8 and iPhone 8 Plus, which sports quite a few new upgrades. The design itself doesn't seem too different, though it does now feature a full glass back, kind of going back to the old iPhone 5 like S and SE route. With having that new glass back, they've also integrated the Qi wireless charging. Wireless charging isn't new in the realm of cell phones, but if you're an Apple person, you know that you've probably been waiting for this for quite a while. So while not being new, it's very welcomed. The iPhone 8 now also sports a Retina HD display with True Tone color. This was some stuff that they integrated in the previous iPads, and it just adds a little bit more to the display and makes it a little bit more color accurate, and especially in the environment that you're at. They've done a minor upgrade to the camera. They have a 12 megapixel camera, also with the 8 Plus having the dual lens camera for portrait mode and to give you that bokeh effect. So on the iPhone 7 Plus, that was the first time that they introduced the portrait mode, which they took advantage of a dual lens camera to be able to give you this bokeh or blur effect in the background. Along with the portrait mode for the iPhone 8 Plus, they're also adding what's known as portrait lighting. This is kind of a cool mixture of machine learning and usage of a dual lens camera to essentially be able to control the lighting scheme on a person's face and around them. So you can do things like remove the background, add or change the lighting interface around you, similar to how photographers would in a portrait setting. They've also added a new processor called the A11 Bionic chip, which of course is just more speed, better GPU performance, that kind of stuff. Previously at their WWDC conference, they announced some new tools for developers, one being ARKit. With the new iOS, they're really hitting on AR, and to complement that, they have calibrated their new cameras to work better for AR apps. The new iPhone 8 and 8 Plus are going to be available for pre-order this Friday and will be available next week, starting at $699 for the iPhone 8 and $799 for the 8 Plus.
Say hello to the iPhone 10.
X gon' give it to you. Wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock, open up the door, it's real. With the non-stop pop out from stainless steel.
Now, just when we thought we were all wrong about the iPhone 10, Tim Cook has to do that one more thing, and they announced the iPhone 10. Now, from what Tim was saying, he mentioned that the iPhone 10 wasn't the 10th version, but rather the 10th year of the iPhone. And this thing looks pretty sweet. Oh my god, bro! This was pretty much what was rumored in news sites for a long time, and we finally see it. We got an edge-to-edge OLED screen. We've got no buttons on the front, so no more home button. Everything just runs along the entire phone up to the speaker. It's got a similar glass front and back like the iPhone 8 did, but it also has some stainless steel that kind of runs along the sides. So the display is a 5.8-inch Super Retina display. They kind of talked about how they avoided OLED for a while because of all the sort of downfalls of OLED, but now that they have overcome a lot of those issues with OLED screens, they finally implemented it in this version. And really the emphasis of this phone was how do you remove that home button but still provide the same ease and use of an iPhone and all the functionalities that you use. They introduced a new thing called Face ID, which is their facial recognition to log into your phone. And again, this isn't something new. Other devices have done sort of a facial recognition before, but it had tons of flaws and kind of got pushed away because of these bad use cases. Like if you wore a hat or wore glasses or did it in the dark, it just didn't work. Apple has resolved this using a bunch of different machine learning techniques as well as hardware upgrades. So they kind of talked about all the different ways that this could fail and basically how this wouldn't fail in this case. So if you're trying to use this in the dark, for example, they said they have a hardware piece called a flint indicator that will essentially illuminate your face and be able to still read your face while in the dark. They also said that no matter what, whether you're wearing a hat or whether you're wearing glasses or you grow facial hair, they said that it still will be able to recognize your face. And the interesting thing is you can't trick it either using a picture of yourself or trying to use some sort of fake face like prosthetic that they would use in Hollywood. They said that they've run a bunch of different tests and they've added these cases so that those things won't work as well. I honestly am really excited about this because it's one of those things that we've seen in sci-fi movies, but we've also seen the implementations in real life being really, really bad. And this is the first indicator that I actually think it's probably going to be a really well done implementation. Okay, so we got to log in. Now, how do we switch apps? How do we go back home? How do we do all that stuff that was there on the home button? So Apple is now sort of relying more on the act of using gestures to pull yourself in and out of apps. So if you just wanted to get out of an app, you just kind of swipe up from the bottom and it would just pop you back into the home. And if you wanted to kind of dock it in a multitask, you can like hold it and then kind of pause and then bring it up and then it'll pull up like a full kind of chore of things. They've also moved the Siri button to the side, kind of like on the Apple Watch. They had this on the side, so they've integrated Siri there. And rather than using Touch ID for Apple Pay, they said that you can use your Face ID, so you can just look at your phone and then run it similar to how Touch ID would run. They also made the whole setup process seem really simple, kind of like if you remember the Touch ID, it was honestly a really simple process. You just keep putting your thumb on there so that it learns what your fingerprint is and it runs it. With your face, you basically just kind of move your face around and then it recognizes it, stores a sort of dot projection of your face onto into the phone, and it's super secure. They also mentioned that the Touch ID is about 1 in 50,000 in terms of security, like 1 in every 50,000 persons would have a chance to be able to log into your phone, whereas Face ID is 1 in a million, so it seems much more promising in terms of security. Apple always seems to have a way of making me really excited about one really stupid feature. In previous version, I was really excited about the whole sticker thing, like being able to send stickers to your friends. It sounded so stupid at the time, but then it was like a very addicting feature. Well, this time they have what's called animojis, and when they first started talking about it, I thought this was gonna be so stupid. And then they showed it off, and I was actually like, this is actually really cool. It's pretty much the whole Snapchat craze of adding stuff onto your face and hiding yourself under a dog nose, but in a full animated emoji. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be sending a bunch of people messages of me using the poop emoji. I'm pretty sure I am. So this Apple event has done a few things and really kind of completed a full circle. One is the Apple Watch being almost entirely independent in its own way. The other thing is the iPhone now has wireless charging. So kind of combining the watch, the phone, the AirPods, they're creating this almost unified structure for how you use tech. Another thing is, even though Apple is usually late to the show when it comes to adding some of these features, they're usually one of the better ones at integrating it. Sure, they're behind on things like wireless charging and having an edge-to-edge display on their phone, but I'm honestly pretty confident that the way that they're going to bring it out and the product itself is just going to be really outstanding. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, like it. If you disliked it, dislike it. We would really appreciate if you also hit that subscribe button to get notified when there's other cool stuff coming out. We'll let you know what's happening. And if you have any comments like what you thought about the new Face ID or what you thought about the new Apple Watch or Apple TV, feel free to leave your comments in the comment section below. But I'll see you later. Peace.